Usually in Egypt, we say that there are some important places that are considered as must-see sites, and no tour to Egypt is complete without stopping by these places. But why are these places important? And what are these places? They are usually included by tour operators in any tour around Cairo. And even from these places, we can see the percentage of the tourism float in the country. Of course, it includes the pyramids, the Egyptian Museum, the Citadel, Dandara, Abu Simbel, and some other places. But just as we can see, all of these places are related to the culture and history of the ancient civilization. So to know more about ancient culture, better to learn more about these sites, because each of these locations witnessed historical moments and has a story to tell. And from this story, we can learn something and gain experience as well. Usually when we visit the pyramids, we look at its shape and design. But it is important to learn more about who built these pyramids and why. Pyramids were built in ancient Egypt as tombs or burial places for Egyptian pharaohs or kings. They believed that the pyramids can make them immortal. Simply they believed in the afterlife. So it was very important to them to protect the bodies of the pharaohs. In order to keep the body of the pharaoh safe, the insides of the pyramids were like mazes with secret doors and dead-end passages. The pharaoh would be near the bottom or even underground. Other rooms contained things like jewelry and furniture that the pharaoh might want in his next life or the afterlife. So the pyramids were built to protect the body of the deceased pharaoh. These massive tombs were constructed to withstand the elements of time and were intended to last forever. Most ancient Egyptians planned for their death, and the pharaoh was no exception. His death was much more elaborate than the typical ancient Egyptian, and considered an important event. This process was tied to the rising and setting of the sun. It was believed that while alive, the pharaoh represented Horus, and upon his death, he represented Osiris. During his state as Osiris, he would set the sun, while the new pharaoh, his son, in the image of Horus, would raise the sun. This process continued for hundreds of years, and that is why it was important that the pharaoh would be protected eternally. And that is why it was important that the pharaoh be protected eternally to avoid a cosmic disturbance. The pharaoh also believed that his death was an extension to a journey towards eternal life. In order to become a being of the afterworld, it was important the pharaoh's physical body be safeguarded and recognizable by his spirit. This in turn led to the process of mummification. The process itself consisted of being embalmed, then wrapped in fine linen. Mummification has always been a mystery that has baffled scientists for centuries. How were the ancient Egyptians able to perfectly preserve their pharaohs for millennia? The 18th dynasty was a time of huge cultural and political revolution, but it also marked the pinnacle of Egyptian embalming techniques. Using a secret and complex process, they managed to stop decomposition almost entirely. But what were the mysterious and complex recipes they were using? Did they really understand the science behind them? And if so, could this represent the greatest scientific achievement of ancient Egypt? Once the process of mummification was complete, the pharaoh was buried with his most prized possessions, such as jewelry, funerary statues, and items that would aid him in his afterlife. The pyramids were perfect for holding items that would help the pharaoh in his afterlife. Though the pyramids had been looted and cleaned before Egyptologists could examine them, there is significant evidence that they held both wooden statues, stone carvings, clothing, food, and luxury items that the pharaoh would have needed. These items were most likely the pharaoh's valued possessions and were regarded as royal. More important, the pyramids were intended to protect the pharaoh's body. In each pyramid, a sarcophagus made of hay protecting the king's mummy. And these heavy stone sarcophagi were supposed to protect the king. However, they were not strong enough. Two robbers were able to steal it all, and today the pyramids are empty, and only subtle clues can give us an insight into how lavish these tombs were. As tomb robbers became more aware of what it meant to discover a pyramid, they quickly went about the business in secrecy, and eventually the pharaohs became aware of this and found other ways to protect their mummies. It was this thinking that led them to start carving their tombs among cliffs or underground, just like the Valley of the Kings. The pyramids of Giza are the most popular and visited in Egypt today. These pyramids are grand and elaborate, yet they did not get quickly. Rather, it took trial and error and precise calculating to develop the three pyramids the way we see it today. Before the first pyramid was ever constructed, the Egyptians built these tomb-like structures were large tombs elevated above the ground. Eventually, this structure progressed into a small pyramid, 6 mastabas stacked on top of one another, each layer being smaller than the bottom one. This first attempt at building the pyramid had a vertical shaft leading into the royal tomb. The entrance was constructed in such a way that it was filled with a lot of granite. Imhotep was the first pharaoh to build a supposed pyramid, but today we call them mastabas. But the first pharaoh to build a true pyramid was King Khufu, or Cheops. The Pyramid of Djoser, or Pyramid, is an archaeological remain in the Saqqara necropolis. It was built during the 27th century BC for the burial of Pharaoh Djoser by Imhotep, his vizier, and of course it is the central feature of a vast mortuary complex in an enormous courtyard surrounded by ceremonial structures and decorations. The step pyramid is considered to be the earliest large-scale cut stone construction. Djoser was the first or second king of the third dynasty. He is believed to have ruled for 19 years. He is best known for his innovative tomb, which dominates the Saqqara landscape. Although the plan of Djoser's pyramid complex is different than later complexes, many elements persist, and the step pyramid sets the stage for later pyramids of the 4th, 5th, and 6th dynasties, including the Great Pyramids at Giza, of course. During the 4th dynasty, the Egyptians took it further and built another stepped pyramid at Midian, and this time they completed its construction.